We approach the bottom of the hour, more football conversation, an NFL version of Sound Off. As teams are having their OTAs, and all their important people are saying all sorts of interesting things, including in Dallas, where new head coach Brian Schottenheimer said his Cowboys are not running away from Super Bowl expectations.
I don't get caught up in the drought. This is 1 year. I mean, this is the first year of mine. I mean, I've been here a couple years. But, you know, when the season's over, we move on. Are we going to win the Super Bowl this year? I hope. I think we are. If we don't, you move on.
Can this team's past ever be burdensome with the Super Bowls and the expectations and all that? Do you ever think that weighs on guys?
I don't think so. Not when the head coach sits up here and talks about the ultimate goal is to win a world championship. You know, I think it's to be celebrated. We want to win a Super Bowl, and we don't hide from that.
So there's Brian Schottenheimer, who, aside from his last name, is not the best-known head coach in the NFL, but you know him well, having covered him.
Look at Shotty sitting there like, I know I'm a rookie head coach. I'm not new to this. You know who my father is. Also, we covered Shotty when he was with Rex, and he predated Rex. He knows how quickly the tide can turn as far as the direction of a franchise. What you want is a guy sitting there, new head coach, saying, we don't shy away from expectations. We know exactly what it is because he's telling you, I'm telling them behind closed doors, you don't even have to ask me about it. You don't have to ask them about it because we talk about it. And Jerry Jones, his presence looms large in that building. His voice, obviously, we hear it once a week, probably twice on Sundays and then Tuesdays and all that. He's made it clear. I need to get a Super Bowl again. And I think Shotty, we don't know much about him as a head coach. The rest of the world, but I think we got a glimpse into why maybe the Cowboys felt like, yeah, he is the right guy for this.
What do you think, Lewis?
Look, I don't think he's out of place, or it's like, you know, it's some kind of, you know, that he misspoke when he says that, you know, having Super Bowl expectations is something that he's talked to his football team about, and obviously everybody down there is aware of. They have a history. We know it's a distant history. We know it's been a long time since they really have been in the Super Bowl talk. But look, contrary to what everyone, you know, might believe, I think every football team goes into the offseason thinking as though with a few moves we can be in contention, because that's the way the league is set up. It's intended to be that way. Now, you may think that some owners and some general managers aren't necessarily making the moves that put you in those positions, but it's out there for you to have. Dallas, I'll tell you what. They catch the right breaks. This offensive line comes along the way it's supposed to. This wide receiver core is able to stay intact and stay moving in the same direction. This defense is able to play better in November and December instead of getting bludgeoned like they have in the past against physical football teams. They can be right there, just like many, many other teams can be. So I don't think, look, him talking about Super Bowl, I could not care less. And quite honestly, I think he is on the right track with the message that he's delivering.
I was skeptical of the hiring process in Dallas, and I have been cynical of the way it all went down, and that, okay, Shotty's convenient, we know him, he's not going to ruffle. But he's thrown a no-hitter this offseason. In every single moment, he's been at that podium in front of the camera talking about culture, acting the same way every single day, being consistent, and I love this. I also... Kimberly was there with the Jets watching show. I was with the Giants when Eli Manning was asked, do you think you're one of the best quarterbacks in the league? And Eli Manning said, yeah, I do. And people freaked out and said, and I respond, what do you want him to say?
Right.
What if Shotty came out and said, you know what, Super Bowl might not be the goal.
Yeah.
We're looking to compete this year with the Giants and the Commanders for maybe second place because the Eagles, this is what you want from a head coach, especially in June.
And especially with that team. The expectations and the attention are going to come in Dallas regardless of whatever it is the coach said in June. Here are two advantages that Brian Schottenheimer has, I think, walking in. He's a first-time head coach. That's unavoidable. But he has two things going for him. One, he's been around forever. This is not like a guy who was an assistant for 6 years. Brian Schottenheimer's been in the NFL actively and working in the NFL for decades. He also, and we have J.B. Bickerstaff with us here this morning as well, and we've constantly pointed it out, he quite literally grew up in this.
Yeah.
His father's one of the winningest coaches of all time, so he quite literally grew up for this. He's had a long time to be prepared to think about, how am I going to answer the question when I'm the head coach someday and they ask me about the Super Bowl? And that's what he came up with, and I like it. Now, the question is it realistic? And I will say the answer, let's not go all the way to Super Bowl.
Yeah, let's not.
Let's talk about, can the Cowboys be a really good team this year? And I think there's two keys. One, Dak Prescott has to be healthy. That goes without saying. You could say that about most teams in the NFL. Whenever he is, they're good. Lewis, the other one is this George Pickens thing.
Yeah.
This could go one of two ways, and the coach might have a lot to do with it.
No doubt.
And maybe not. If it works out, if they caught lightning in a bottle with a guy in a contract year who finally gets it, this offense could be pretty good.
It's either going to be great or it's going to be a problem. It's not going to be middle of the road.
Right.
It's either George is going to be catching 16 per reception and making those ridiculous one-handed catches outside the numbers, and him and CD will play off each other, or it's going to be one of those where Brian Schottenheimer is going to be answering a lot of questions about why isn't George getting the ball? Why does George seem upset? Why was George talking to you on the sideline? That's what it's going to be. Even more so than this, though, look, I still believe this about Dallas. Dallas will go as this offensive line goes, which has the potential with all the high-round draft picks to be one of the best in the NFL. And on the defensive side, again, how many times have you sat here in November and December and had discussions about the fact that Dallas just can't play the physical game in December and January? They can't do it. And if that's been corrected, Dallas will be right there. They'll be contending in the division. Those are the questions.
They got bullied last year.
That's right.
They got bullied.
That's right.
There are a lot of questions facing the Cowboys, not just the quarterback, not just the Pickens of it all, but I like that Dak is the entrenched guy. In Pittsburgh, there was a leadership void, particularly on offense. Even when you had Russell, you knew that Russell wasn't going to be there a long time. But also, their schedule, brutal. They start with the Eagles. The rest of the games get a little easier, and then their holiday slate is just terrible.
Yeah.
They face so many good teams. So I think the schedule, in addition to Shotty being a rookie head coach, we talk about the late game situation, game management and all that with the last coach, McCarthy. I think Shotty will have to answer
Final
questions
word on
too.
this one. Go.
I think Lewis said it right. It's all there for them, but a lot of things have to go their way.
Yeah.
They have to figure it out. But I do have legitimate concerns about the offensive line when you lose a Zach Martin and a Tyron Smith in back-to-back years and just the veteran presence. They've drafted a lot of good young players, but those guys are going to have to block their butts off to really make it work.
It's the three Tylers, man. It's Tyler Guyton, Tyler Booker,
Tyler Smith. Yeah.
Those are three. Those are the dudes.
And two. Yeah.
It's Tyler cubed right now in Dallas. Meanwhile, in Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes saying interesting things. He's optimistic that his team's loss in the Super Bowl will help them moving forward. Listen to this.
When you lose the Super Bowl, I think there's sometimes in those workouts where you may be a little tired. You have that extra added motivation to finish even harder, finish even stronger. And I think it'll be good for us at the end of the day. A lot of these guys hadn't lost one, hadn't ended the season on a loss that are on this team now. So I'm sure they'll be motivated to go back out there and try to find a way to get to the Super Bowl and win it this year.
What are we thinking about that there with your friend, Mr. Mahomes? His motivation, historically losing the team that loses the Super Bowl, we know usually doesn't even make the playoffs the next year. It does not seem to apply in the case of Kansas City and Mahomes. What do you think of them coming back after that disaster on Super Bowl Sunday?
Look, I can just tell you this. Their general manager, Brett Veach, was absolutely miserable, tortured this offseason as far as what happened in the Super Bowl. It reminded him a lot of what happened to them when they went to the Super Bowl and got absolutely bludgeoned by Tampa Bay, and they went to work to try to finish the offensive line. They did the same thing in terms of trying to fix this offensive line, trying to make this football team stronger on the edges. On the defensive side is where they're really excited as well now. They have some defensive linemen that they drafted, two rookies, Aston Gelati out of Louisville, Omar Norman-Lott out of Tennessee, who they freaking love. They absolutely love. They love their secondary already, but Patrick himself, look, you see the new haircut? You see the nice, clean, the whole change of image? Dude knows what people were saying about him last year. People know, he knows what people were saying in that Super Bowl, how he wasn't sharp, he wasn't seeing the field well, he looked scared, he wasn't the guy who could really level up the rest of the offense. He knows. The whole organization has heard it all.
Last Dance, we all watched The Last Dance, and when they lost to Detroit that second time in a row, Michael Jordan got in the gym and then got everyone else in the gym. And we look at it and we say that's the day after the Super Bowl. I can tell you, Patrick Mahomes was in the gym Monday morning, and it has been laser focus ever since. And I don't know if I'm making news here or not, but I was at Super Bowl. I was talking about that. I don't think Travis Kelce was 100%. And I'm not talking about an injury. I'm talking about the flu. I'm talking about Travis Kelce was under the weather in that game also. And I can make all the excuses you want. And I hear you Bills and Bengals fans who are going to say, enough with you and the Chiefs. The truth of the matter is this. They're going to come back motivated, and they have the taste of that loss. Not just Brett Veach. That was an embarrassment of what happened.
Well, they're the opposite of the Cowboys, where it's like, no, if we have the goal of winning the Super Bowl. For the Chiefs, it is nothing else but winning championships.
The truth of the matter is they're a better football team this year.
Yeah, but you know what their problem is?
They're a better team.
Can I point out their problem? And it has nothing to do with them. All those years that Brady was dominating the world, part of it was the division was pretty bad.
Yeah.
This last decade or so, the division Kansas City plays in pretty bad. We all think the Chargers are a lot better.
It's changed.
I think the Raiders are going to be better, with what they've done there. And Denver is now all of a sudden a playoff team and might be pretty good. Just winning the AFC West isn't as easy as it has been for a while.
One regular season loss last year.
I understand. And they've been the best. I think it just could get
I've been hearing this about the Chargers for a decade.
Harder. Okay. But they didn't have Jim Harbaugh. They had as their